This information is presented without any mystification from an atheistic point of view. Our pre-biblical ancestors were well educated in this matter. We also have to comprehend everything recently discovered, collecting bits and pieces, and reflecting all this on personal experience. As I seek to give you the most accurate information, everything will be updated and may be revised when new data is received. Larva can be represented as a modulated piece of information of vital force. This means larva can act as the program to the information carrier within oneself, focusing on thoughts, feelings, and images. In the same way that we are in the initial evolutionary stage of our human species, it is possible to create amulets, growth activators, recovery agents, etc. Larva is created when a person pumps it with life force unconsciously, to the point where it becomes a self-aware unit. Beginning to experience emotions, it builds an instinct for self-preservation and intelligence. That is, a person has the ability to generate a new life, their child, and begin to treat them with reverence. They treat their child like a Tamagotchi, feeding him with her life, and jealousy protects him from attacks from the outside. At the first stage, these acts are enough to maintain a fixated thought for their feeding on some problem, conflict, lust. After the larva was born and begins to cling to life, to stimulate the maternal flow of vitality, it feeds the parent body with a natural drug, triggering the necessary physiological processes in the body, and mentally, it sharpens the feeling of self-pity. A person can identify it as pity through his personality with the help of mental manipulations of the larva. It does this by erasing its existence from the recipient's consciousness. However, I have repeatedly been convinced that a person in the depths of their soul perfectly understands the state of things, if he is pressed with leading questions. For larvae, the management of the human body is not difficult. It can be controlled by anyone who is not lazy, such as the avoidance of scabies and worms. Parasites control human behavior, choosing the best conditions for their reproduction, food of the required acidity and quality, and force a person to protect these conditions from attacks from the outside. There will always be people trying to help a fading person, such as a drug addict fatally hooked on perverted pleasures. A person cannot just do the same thing as a parasite. He is by nature actually the master of his body. It is the infernal forces of society that lead us to be convinced of our insignificance in this world. Through further development and building up its body, the larva becomes, as it were, a hernia and is fixed on the corresponding organ. It's not that she is strongly attached to him, it's just that it's more convenient and easier for her to eat. For example, if thoughts are fixated on unhappy love, then it will sit on the heart. If thoughts are fixated on gluttony, then it will sit in the stomach area. On the fixation of responsibility, it will sit in the neck and shoulders area, and an unbearable burden in life will lead to sitting on the lower back. This continues for each organ, including internal ones. Larva diligently maintains internal conflict, anxiety, and fear at an optimally high level in order to beat out a new portion of nutrition from the donor every day in the form of creation energy. It is a person's birthright to receive it daily, and unfortunately, it can be lost without a trace by investing senseless efforts and failing to use it. The larva does not digest this energy and does not release it, as one might think. This is simply not possible, because this energy is eternal and cannot be destroyed. The larva embeds it into its body, but only a small percentage of what is extracted. The main part is broadcast to his God, whom he knows and sees with his own eyes. She knows for sure that the conditions for her birth were created by her God, who arranged everything in our world so that people do not have control of this process. If we were not tricked and misinformed, there would be few fools who would create vampires of themselves, sucking out life and consciousness. In case of a sudden resolution of an internal conflict or the elimination of an external problem, most often during the day, larvae may organize a new conflict of anxiety or fear. This can be experienced by everyone at any time. It is necessary to get rid of this tormenting problem, as right away we may find ourselves another that can often feel stupid and illogical. By attempting to free the larva, the withdrawal of energy is transferred to another organ, which in turn will cause deterioration and eventually failure. Theoretically, there may be several larvae, but I do not see such signs. In fact, larvae are a device that opens access to the connection of any other entities of the infernal world. If there is no singular larva on a person, then it is very difficult to use it, since there is no means of switching it. She is not at all concerned about the settlement of other parasites, which through her warm up on this volcano of life force called humans. Through it, demons can enter a person, infernal hierarchies can take control, psychics can connect when working with clients, magicians can connect when performing their manipulations, clergymen can connect when connecting to a religious egregore, and ordinary people can connect in a vampiric manner on the life force of loved ones or dependent people. That is, larva is an open window into the infernal world. In order for the infernal world to be able to connect a person to its internal network by collecting energy, it needs a connector, which is what a larva is, a self-adjusting, initiative device with its own consciousness and sufficient knowledge of human functioning. The infernal god structures and arranges the material world that is inhabited by donors in such a way that this device is guaranteed to be reproduced and embedded in every person. For this to take place on Earth through material civilizations of the demonic path of development, terrestrial systems of protection against infernal invasion were destroyed, infrastructures were demolished, the world order was reduced and fragmented, history was replaced, science was limited, medicine was reduced to the removal of symptoms of the disease, and a mass media system was introduced for the final disorientation and management of reflection. The true knowledge of the multidimensional world order has been removed from general use and replaced by that of religions. All the labor and accumulated values of a person are withdrawn, just like loan interest. In these ideal conditions, an atmosphere of uncertainty, fear, debauchery, and degradation is formed. Larva pumps the energy of creation into the infernal world. The infernal world creates conditions for larva's vital activity. And finally, the circle is closed. In the present, most people are looking for a partner, not on the principle of humanity, but one of love, consent, and worthy procreation. Similarly, larva is looking for a partner on another carrier, and can sense him from afar. She reads, simply by appearance, the degree of internal problems and complexes, nervousness and pride. Then he tests it with insults, scandal, and nonsense. The ideal partner should react accordingly. If a larva sees the prospect of cohabitation, then despite all the nonsense thrown at them, two people become a couple and will experience love and passion generated by the larva. When people are connected and new habits are created, the larva will translate this into hatred and irritation. People may break off the relationship if the connection interferes with the qualitative use of the recipient. If a couple is scandalous and continues to be frequently at the bewilderment of others, it must be understood that it is the larvae who are having sex. As a result of this process, new larvae are born. They are seeded on others, and children are connected through procreation. At the final stages of a person's life, larva, in most cases, replaces a person's consciousness with its own. Instead of our relatives and friends being themselves, we may one day discover strange creatures in their bodies, infinitely irritated, fanatical, or ardent atheists, egocentric, mentally degraded, or possibly mired in disgusting habits. This is the result of larva manifested in materiality of a person's body. Throughout one's whole life, a person faithfully and selflessly serves food. When he passes away, he is proud of this sacrifice. A necessary condition that the larva may be using a person is through the creation of a stable schizophrenia within him. Psychology collects an increasing number of phobias and brings them to the rank of individual diseases exceeding 1,000. The reason for all the phobias is the same. It is a consequence of the larva's vital activity. Firstly, she likes to eat regularly, tasty and varied. Secondly, by eating in this way, she expresses her individuality. Schizophrenia is a necessary brine for larva's vital activity. In most cases, brain damage is the result of a long selection of vital forces through the corresponding conflict areas, which is recorded by medicine. But causes of such may differ with the consequences in places. Technologically, the relationship between larva and man develops as follows. Larva creates in a person the necessary level of internal conflicts, fears, phobias, passions, pride, and other vices. The worse these conditions, the better for the larva. In return for the existence of these conditions, people feed the larva with drugs. A person lives, as it were, in hell, but at the same time experiences perverse pleasure, each time waiting for a new portion, suffering from shame and cowardice, or anger and hatred, so that a person does not rebel against infernal violence. Larva forces a person to repair moral violence against anyone who cannot resist, parents over children, bosses over subordinates, developed countries over the underdeveloped. All the vicious qualities that a person experiences belong to larva: fear of being exposed, lies, self-pity, cowardness, laziness, sexual promiscuity, gluttony, and so on down the list. All this is a reflection of the parasite's fear and attachment. Larva is afraid of exposure, and she is insatiable. The glutton tears his belly and can't get enough. The alcoholic gets drunk. The libertine stops. A person thoughtlessly attributes all these qualities to himself, standing up for its manifestation, motivating freedom of expression of personality. It makes no sense to blame the infernal world and larva in particular for making us who we are. Every day we agree to give ourselves up for use and enjoy perverted suffering in return for the next dose of the drug. Even before we were born, we decided to learn the evolutionary lesson, and now we need to treat this chase with due respect and understanding. We invite you to join spiritual seminars, workshops, and retreats hosted by the Leader Masters. Reveal your superpowers, find your predestination, and accumulate power to gain well-being and bring your goals to life. Send an email saying, "I want to join the seminar" to our mailbox, and we will give you all the information. See you soon!